All right, so let's talk about mutual funds first, and a very important concept or a practice that fund managers have is of the cash holding that they have in their particular fund, or they kind of imbibe it in their investment strategy. What does it exactly mean, and what right now is the cash holdings of funds across market caps? That understand all of this, I have with me Gautam Kalia, Senior Vice President, Head Super Investor at Sharekhan by BNP Paribas. Gautam, good evening and welcome to the show. What is the concept of holding cash that fund managers usually hold?
Right. So typically, because most mutual funds allow for redemption at any given point of time, even if there are exit load implications and tax implications, you can get your money and you can place an redemption request anytime and get your money in 2-3 days, depending on the category of fund. So there is a certain amount of liquidity that has to be maintained at the fund house level, at the scheme level, so that they are able to fulfill such requests. It's like your local bank branch having some cash in hand, so that if anyone wants to withdraw some money, they have that cash to give to you. So typically this varies between 0 to 5%, or some situations it may go up to 8-9%. But we've seen that in the last few months, some funds are having a higher holding in cash.
All right, so let's talk about the funds that have a higher cash holdings right now, and also what is the kind of strategy these mutual funds are holding right now?
Right. So, I've provided a list to your team of the funds that are holding higher cash. So, I'll just say a few examples. For example, ICICI Prudential Transportation and Logistics Fund has about 20%. HDFC Focus 30 Fund has 17%. Tata Small Cap Fund has around 14%. So these are some names that are holding higher cash. They are about 15-20 funds, and many of them have cash holdings of greater than 10%. So prior to the show, we had a chat with a few fund managers and fund houses to kind of get a sense of why do they have such high cash holdings, and really it's a function of the rise in the amount of inflows that is coming. So inflows are coming at a faster pace than can be deployed in the market. And second is that gradually, as the market continues to do well, the options to invest in also become less attractive and limited. So obviously, if I'm a fund manager managing a certain corpus, I'm going with my high conviction stocks in the beginning, and then gradually moving into the next level of my conviction stocks as I get more and more money. And then once I reach a stage where I don't want to be put in a position where I have to buy stocks that I'm not entirely comfortable with, I'll hold on to cash and check for valuations, check for other ideas, and then deploy. So that really is what is happening, where we see the market doing well, fund performance, their new entrants to the market coming in, more money coming in from existing entrants, and if a fund starts doing well, then even more money comes in because despite the disclaimers, most investors look at past performance and select the scheme. So success becomes it's like a cycle that propels more funds coming in, and that's when fund houses have to figure out to how to deploy that excess cash. So, for example, the Tata Small Cap has just stopped taking fresh inflows, lump sum, due to such high inflows. And HDFC Focus 30 Fund also, the fund manager doesn't want to put more money in the mid and small cap space. So they are trying to figure out a way to redeploy the excess funds. So this is really what's happening right now.
So Gautam, anything that an investor should be keeping in mind? Obviously, tracking the cash holdings or the cash levels in the fund is going to be a very important thing that an investor should do. But then, if a fund is consistently having higher cash holdings, is it something that investors should be considering about the fund and maybe keeping a track of?
Yes. There's a combination. So when you're investing 100 rupees in a mutual fund, you're expecting at least 1995 of that to be deployed because you're doing the asset allocation at your level. Now, if the fund manager is opportunistically deploying the cash, that's okay. If the fund manager is keeping 20% because the anticipation is of a market correction and then buying at a more attractive valuation, that makes sense. But if a fund is consistently keeping, let's say, 15-20% in cash, then it's really a cause for concern, because you're not really getting your money's worth as far as fund management fees is concerned. Your money is not being deployed as you expected it to. So those become red flags for us, especially when we look at funds and research them. And that should become a red flag for investors also, especially if the fund house finds it difficult to deploy money, let's say over a 6 month to 12-month period, and stays in cash for about at elevated levels.
Gautam, one last question and then we'll move on to our viewers' queries. Should a decision to exit a fund be based on the cash holding that a fund has? Obviously, I'm sure there are other factors as well, but then can this be one of the major factors?
So I would say typically no, it's not one of the major factors. But like I said earlier, that if the cash flow, cash allocation is at a consistently elevated level, then you're not really getting your money's worth. You're putting in, let's say, 100 rupees, and if only 80 rupees is being deployed and 20 rupees is sitting in cash or short-term debt instruments for 6 months to 12 months, and in your research you don't see that as being opportunistic, and you don't see that changing, where the fund manager has, let's say, when the market corrects and the fund manager's gone to 95% deployed status. So if it's not opportunistic in nature, then I would say that that's when a consistently large cash holding becomes an issue. But typically what I've seen is that uh, these are imperfections in markets where flows are being managed, and just because a fund has deployed 95% or even higher, doesn't mean that that's the best approach also, because you may end up having a very fat tail. You may end up having 70-80 stocks in a portfolio where the fund manager is just buying a lot of stocks to deploy the cash, which may not be in his high conviction basket. So that also is not really suitable for the client.
All right, so I think that's all for this topic of discussion, and we will be soon taking our viewers' queries also. But then before that, in tonight's episode of